I think you opened up a lot of issues there. And David Blacker, writing in the Times of India day before yesterday, noted among many other points he was making that the war mentality that we have been under for nearly 3 decades now has killed Sri Lankan literature. And he was speaking specifically about fiction. But could it be also argued that you say the lack of scientific development, or indeed the lack of development writ large, has it killed our ability to interrogate ourselves as a polity and society, do you feel? As writers, as people who, whatever media, mainstream media, new media?
Yeah, I think what's happened is the space, the public sphere or the public space where we can argue, we can come and bring out a multiplicity of ideas. You know, that space has been shrinking, and there has been this terrible polarization that if you're not with me, you must be against me, you should be shouted down or worse. You know, that scares a lot of practitioners, a lot of writers, both creative and otherwise, non-fiction. It also prevents or intimidates others, including young writers or older writers who want to get into this public sphere. So there is that vacuum, and it's been created or fueled by the conflict in part, but partly it's also there are other forces, you know, forces of nationalism which lay dormant and then have risen their ugly, terrible head in the wake of the conflict. I think these forces predate the conflict and perhaps triggered the conflict in the first place. But that all these factors detract from that marketplace of ideas where you can argue out, counter-argue, and basically agree to disagree. And that space is not there, and therefore the writing is that much poorer for it.
I want to come at that from 2 angles. One is that I've read your writing on your blog. Now, you write prolifically on your blog, much more than I believe you publish in print, or as much. Now, that's atypical still for many journalists in Sri Lanka who still are chained to a mainstream media broadcast paradigm, where, you know, which is not the same, or is certainly the world has evolved from those old understandings and definitions of broadcast media. What made you change? What made you realize that the media as we have grown up with has changed?
Well, when I started writing for a living in the Sri Lankan mainstream media in the late 80s, the internet was not commercially available or accessible in this country. In fact, nowhere else in the world.
Exactly.
So things have changed so much in the past 20 or so years. But why I took to blogging just a little under 2 years ago in early 2007 was that I found that more and more I was unable to express myself in the so-called mainstream media. Or I was being asked to be careful, I was being asked to be respectful of certain limits, and after a while I thought, you know, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to be my own publisher. And the web allows, especially Web 2.0, the technologies and platforms like blogging allow us to be our own publishers. And so I became one.
So why is the resistance? Surely this should be celebrated. Journalists should be up in the streets and, you know, celebrating the advent of such a democratic media.
As the web.
As the web, as the internet, as blogs. But I don't see it happening.
Well, I mean, there are a few who find that their monopoly on information and the free flow of ideas is shattered by the advent of the web and the digital media, and these people are griping. So I think we should just move on, and we should just populate the web with our ideas.
I wonder, Nalaka, though, whether that one category of those people who are resistant to or very skeptical or in fact fearful of the growth of this new marketplace of ideas is a repressive government. A repressive government, be it anywhere in the world, I believe would be very worried about this free flow of ideas suddenly, which is not as easy to control as, say, a printing press, which they could shut down in the past. Now, is that cause for concern for people who are thinking about blogging in Sri Lanka as a way of expressing things they can't in mainstream media?
Yes and no. I mean, governments or those in authority trying to control the flow of information and ideas is nothing new. I mean, this happened in the time of the ancient Greeks and the Romans, and since then over the centuries. What has happened now with the web is that for the first time perhaps we are able to have hundreds and thousands of points of media product generation and distribution. And therefore, those in authority find that instead of just monitoring a dozen broadcasts or half a dozen newspapers, they have to suddenly keep an eye on all these